Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 9th edition of the MoonKast, or the 9th episode of the MoonKast. Today's date is March 17th, 2016. The MoonKast has been brought to you today by Moon-Based Chronicles, the double LP from yours truly, Griffin G. Chow. Release date is still to be announced. We will talk about LSU and Ben Simmons. We will talk about March Madness 2016 NCAA tournament. We will give you expert analysis. You can find Griffin G. Chow on Twitter at Griffin_G-Chow. That is GRIFFIN_GCHILD. And now, without further ado, Dayton, Ohio, born and raised, the one and only Griffin G-Chow. Ladies and gentlemen, women and gentle germs, this is the one and only Griffin G. Child, and I am back in business with the MoonKast. That's right, the MoonKast is back. This is episode number 9, or you could say it's the 9th edition of the MoonKast. The MoonKast has been brought to you today by Moon-Based Chronicles, the double album from yours truly, Griffin G. Child. The release date, unfortunately, is still to be announced, but I am working extremely hard to finish this project. This edition number 9, feeling good, feeling fine. This edition of the MoonKast will be dedicated towards March Madness. Who will be the biggest and baddest when it comes to March Madness, and who will be singing praises or sadness when it comes to March Madness. This is the big show for college basketball right here. There are a lot of things going on in the NBA, but I will put those things off for a future date. And we want to talk about college basketball in this segment. I do have one bracket filled out. I have one sheet filled out, and I will give you my picks. And I do have a couple of upsets in there, so you do not want to miss out on that. We're also going to talk about LSU's Ben Simmons. We're going to talk about him, and we're going to talk about what happened with the LSU Tigers this year. And we're also going to talk about if he is still the overall projected number 1 pick in the NBA draft. So we have a few things to get to today, but it may take a while to get through everything just because of the magnitude of the March Madness NCAA tournament. I will also talk about the state of college basketball. So these are big issues and these are big things that we're going to talk about in today's show. And we're going to push the NBA off till next week. We're going to talk NBA next week, and also by the time of next week, we will have the Final Four projections ready as well. We will see who will be heading into the Sweet 16 and then going into the Final Four. We'll see if my picks held up, and if not, we will see who's there, and then I will make adjustments as far as which teams will be there. We will also, for those who missed it, we had a very explosive show for episode number 8. For those who missed it, the Scottie Pippen effect made its debut, in episode number 8. So any fans of 90s basketball, late 80s, 90s basketball, 1990s basketball, you want to tune in and you want to subscribe to my channel. The name is Griffin Rucker. You can subscribe to my channel. If you missed out on the Scottie Pippen effect, you want to go back and check that out. Put a lot of work into that. That was a great MoonKast there. I pretty much broke down the greatness of Scottie Pippen and how you see the essence of Scottie Pippen in today's NBA. And so you want to go back and you want to pull that up. So you want to go to youtube.com, of course, or also even Google. You go to Google, you just type in Scottie Pippen effect or the Scottie Pippen effect. It's going to pop up in Google, and you can check out the very nice and kind words that I had to say about Scottie Pippen. He is probably my favorite player in NBA history, and you can see the essence of him throughout today's game if you are a true astute fan of basketball. This is not for your average Joe basketball fan or your casual basketball fan. If you're a purist of basketball, you can really see the essence of Scottie Pippen in today's game. I recommend that you go back and you listen to the MoonKast number 8. Listen to that episode. That debuted it in late February. So just pull up, like I said, research the Scottie Pippen effect. If you are not able to find it, you can find me on Twitter at Griffin_Gchild. That is GRIFFIN_Gchild. GCHILD. So you can look me up as well if you are not able to find the Scottie Pippen effect. You can shoot me a message, or you can tweet me a message, or however you want to do it. I'll make sure that you are able to track down the Scottie Pippen effect, and that you are able to enjoy it. So with all this being said, we have an explosive show for you for show number 9. I'm going to step down, and we're going to take a pause for a station identification, and I will be back with you shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, the MoonKast has been brought to you today by Moonbase Chronicles. The double LP from Griffin Gchild, release date to be announced. You are listening to Moonbase Radio, and now back to the show. Once again, I am back. The MoonKast has been brought to you today by Moonbase Chronicles, the double LP from yours truly, Griffin Gchild. Release date is still to be announced, unfortunately, but music that you have heard may appear on the project. So if you do enjoy the music that you hear, it will be on the project. Now, we're going to start the show off with LSU first. So we're going to talk about a college team that actually didn't make the tournament and will not be in any tournament. The LSU Tigers had a pitiful performance playing against Tennessee in a 71-38 beatdown to get eliminated from the SEC tournament. For what I could see, I don't want to go off on a long rant, even though I may, but I believe that Ben Simmons did not want to go to college at all. He did not grow up in America, so he is not, I don't think he is really concerned about going to college, leading a team to a Final Four and winning a championship. I don't think those things really appealed to him. I think he wanted to play basketball at the professional level, and that's all he cared about. It looks like the team basically gave up and quit. And I believe it starts at the top. The head coach, Johnny Jones, he decided that his team would not play in any tournaments, not even the NIT. I thought for sure that if they didn't make the NCAA tournament, that he would be, or that Johnny Jones would have the team in the NIT, which, you know, no pun intended or pun intended, in my opinion, the NIT stands for not in tournament, but it really stands for a national invitational tournament. So the teams that are not good enough to make the big dance, they basically get a chance to go to the homecoming dance, basically. So you get a chance to still play. There's also another league called the CIT. I am not for sure what that stands for, but those are teams that are even of lesser pedigree or really don't have the shot to even make the NIT. Those teams make the CIT. So I do not have any information to confirm this, and I do not want to put things in people's mouths or say anything that is not true. But there may be some news that comes out that Ben Simmons took something under the table. I'm just putting that out there now. That may be something that you hear, maybe a year or two later or what have you, to go to LSU. I believe his godfather was one of the assistant coaches on the team, and that's what made him decide to want to go. But it seems really fishy to me for a team to not want to participate in any tournament at all. And I'm hearing that they didn't have a deep enough bench, or they had lack of depth, but that shouldn't matter. Playing basketball is playing basketball. I know they had Keith Hornsby, who he suffered an injury and he was basically done for the season. But you can still play in the NIT, whether you have the depth or not. Even if you get bounced out first game, it's still a tournament game. You can still play. So I don't really like that excuse of we didn't have enough depth. I'm thinking something may or may not come out a while from now about Ben Simmons. He didn't have the grades academically, which in the way I look at it, when a player doesn't have the grades, the player doesn't really care about even being there. And so, in my opinion, he was better off going the same route as Emmanuel Mudiay. Emmanuel Mudiay went to the Denver Nuggets as the 7th pick in the draft in 2015. I believe that Ben Simmons was better off just going to China. Just go to China for a year, play pro ball, or a lot of players haven't really done this yet, but you can go to the D-League and play D-League basketball for a year and then go to the NBA. I don't understand why players aren't taking this route. I know the D-League is looked at as players that aren't good enough to play in the NBA, but if you're going to go and you're not going to take it seriously, then I believe you should just go to the D-League. Or like I said, just play ball overseas for that 1 year. Emmanuel Mudiay, he was actually projected to be the number 1 pick in the 2015 draft before the college season had started. And so that could be the knock on going and playing overseas is you don't get the national exposure that you get when you play in the United States when you're overseas. And so people did not get to see Emmanuel Mudiay play. And so that could have been why he fell to number 7. But I always felt like it's not about who goes number 1. Kobe Bryant went number 13. Scottie Pippen went number 5. The greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, went number 3. So it's not about who goes number 1 in every single case. It's more about just get your name called. If they call your name, be ready. It's a Keith Murray song that I really like. I can't quote all the lyrics, but he basically says, "Call my name and I'll come running." And that's what I'm more so into. When they call you, I don't even care if you're the 50th pick in the NBA draft. If they call your name, be ready to play some ball. And so he would have been better off just playing overseas. Instead, this looks like a 6-month pony show. So he basically said, let me come over and play for LSU. Let me play for about 6 months. Let me show you the flashes of brilliance and the giftedness that I have, and then we'll go ahead and go pro. Let's look at his numbers real quick, and the numbers that back it up. So he averaged 19.2 points, 11.8 rebounds, and 4.8 assists on 56% field goal shooting, which that may seem impressive. But let's look at the downside. 33% shooting from the 3-point line, He rarely took any jumpers at all, for one. So teams would just pack the paint. And it seemed like he could pretty much drive to the basket and go to the hole at will. And so he used that to his advantage. And when he wanted to take over a game, he would. If he didn't, he didn't. In the big game against Oklahoma, when it gets Buddy Hield, he didn't shoot the ball in the last 4 minutes of that game. So scouts and college enthusiasts, they want to see that player dominate and take over that game. He did not take over that game. And so, in my opinion, is that I believe he was just saving himself. He didn't care. He didn't care what people thought about as far as he could shoot jumpers. He didn't care about people thinking that he could not or can take over a game. That just didn't make any sense to him from what I'm starting to see. And it is a disappointment because I thought that he could carry that team into the Final Four, let alone not even make the tournament. But it's pretty much, when you keep hearing that you're the number 1 overall pick and you're hearing that Nike's going to throw $90 million at you for a shoe deal, you're not going to want to risk anything at the collegiate level. So to me, this was just a 6-month pony show. Just parade up and down the court, make yourself look good, don't do anything stupid, and you'll make it to the NBA. And I believe that's why he didn't play hard. Now, the reason why I believe that is right after the coach said they would not play any postseason tournaments or play in any postseason tournaments, he allegedly has planned to sign with LeBron James' agency, the LRMR. And so if you're signing with that agency and March just broke through, to me, that's barely 6 months on campus. You're not even concerned about anything on the collegiate level or at the collegiate level. So academics means nothing to him. As far as the basketball IQ, he is very talented. As far as running an offense and making the right pass, he's very phenomenal with doing that. So college just was not necessary to him. So it is very disappointing. But the game doesn't stop for anyone. The game moves on. So let's talk about another player who may be able to knock him off for that number 1 pick. I spoke about him a few MoonKasts ago, and that's why if you missed it, you need to go back. And like I said, I have 8 of them. You want to go back and just pull up all of them, pull up all 8, and just listen. I talked about Brandon Ingram. He is averaging 16.8 points a game, 6.8 rebounds on 44% field goal shooting. So not as great as Ben Simmons, but it's because Ben Simmons basically played around the basket, and 41% from 3. So he can already shoot the 3 ball right now. So Brandon Ingram, he is in the tournament, and you want to keep your eye out on Brandon Ingram. If he makes a deep push into the tournament with the Duke Blue Devils, keep your eye on the Duke Blue Devils. If he makes a deep run with this team, he may be able to knock him off of that top number 1 pick, but it's hard to say. He may or may not, because Ben Simmons, I still believe he is a phenomenal talent, and I believe that when he gets into the individual workout phase, that teams will be very wowed and impressed by him, and that he will still go number 1. I just think, like I said, he wasn't pressing hard, but I believe that when he gets into the individual workouts, that you will see his jumper. I believe he's probably working on his jumper right now as we speak. So I believe you're going to see a different pro player in the NBA out of Ben Simmons that you're seeing now. I don't think you can count anything at the collegiate level as far as his drive, his heart, his determination. No. When you're throwing $90 million at a 19-year-old, I don't think he's going to play hard at the collegiate level. But when he gets to that pro level, I believe with the mentorship that he's already going to receive from LeBron James, that he will be a great player at that level. So we will talk about the teams that he will fit with and how will he fit in a future MoonKast. But I just wanted to put out there that it is disappointing that his team did not make the tournament. But his 3-point shooting is not there. And of course, all of his shots were around the basket. I'm hearing his wingspan is not great as far as being a wing defender. But to me, like I said, let's get into the individual workouts, and then we'll start to see different things be said about him, different comments being made about him. So, but also keep your eye out on Brandon Ingram from the Duke Blue Devils. Keep your eye out on him. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a break for a station identification, and I will be back with you shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, the MoonKast has been brought to you today by Moonbase Chronicles. The double LP from Griffin G. Child, release date to be announced. You are listening to Moonbase Radio, and now back to the show. Once again, the MoonKast has been brought to you today by Moonbase Chronicles, the double LP from yours truly, Griffin G. Child. Release date is still to be announced. I am back in business for the last and final segment of this show, and we're going to dedicate this part of the show to the NCAA tournament bracket. I'm going to go over all of my picks for the NCAA tournament. So we have the South region, West region, Midwest region, and the East region. So basically South, East, West, Midwest. So we're going to go with the South region first, which will end in Louisville, Kentucky. And the Final Four is actually going to be in Houston this year. Now, Louisville, Kentucky is actually where my father was born and raised, and also my two older brothers, Chico Rucker and Rico Rucker. They were also born in Louisville, Kentucky. So I have a lot of family in Kentucky. So it is very saddening that the Louisville Cardinals will not be able to participate in this tournament because of a Rick Pitino sex scandal and NCAA investigation. While they will not be able to participate in this tournament. Not necessarily the Rick Pitino sex scandal, but there was a sex scandal that took place between players of the past. I do not like the way the NCAA hands out their penalties. I believe that penalties should be financial. And if that player is no longer on the team, I don't think the future team should have to suffer for that player. So I don't like the rules in the NCAA at all, and that is why I prefer professional basketball over college basketball, but that is neither here nor there. But Louisville, Kentucky, once again, my father's born and raised there. My grandfather and my grandmother, they raised him there. I have two uncles there and an aunt there, and I have lots of cousins in the state of Kentucky. So I just wanted to say hello to everyone and God bless all. And let's get back to the NCAA tournament. So we're going to start this off. The number one seed in the South region is Kansas, and they will be facing Austin Peay. And for teams that will not be advancing in the tournament, I'm going to use the term warm up the bus. And the reason I use that term is because every team that makes the tournament, they stay in hotels and they have buses, and the buses take the players to the arena. When the team was eliminated, they get back on the bus and they either go back to the hotel to pick up their belongings or they take them straight to the airport. So when a team is not going to advance, I am going to say warm up the bus. So hopefully you got that. So we have Kansas facing Austin Peay as the 1 and the 16th seed. The 16th seed has never beaten the number 1. Eventually it will happen because there's a lot of teams with one and done players that don't stay long enough, where that 16th seed may have a team full of seniors, with guys that know each other, and so those guys may know how to play together, have more fluidity, continuity, and may be able to knock off a number 1 seed. So I'm hearing that this year could be the year that it does happen, but if it doesn't happen, it's cool too, but you never know. I do not have a 16th seed knocking off a number 1 seed. So let's go ahead and get back to it. Once again, you have Kansas playing Austin Peay in the 1 and 16 matchup. Colorado is number 8 playing Connecticut number 9. Maryland, number 5, playing number 12, South Dakota. Now, the number 12 seed has knocked off a lot of number 5 seeds in the tournament. Number 4, California, facing number 13, Hawaii. I have a lot of faith in California this year. We also have Arizona playing Wichita State. We have Miami playing Buffalo, 3-14. We have Iowa playing Temple, 7-10. We have Villanova playing against UNC Asheville. So let's go ahead and go over the picks. So Kansas and Austin Peay, I'm going with Kansas in that matchup. Colorado, Connecticut, I'm going Colorado in that matchup. Maryland, South Dakota, I'm going Maryland in that matchup. California and Hawaii, I'm going to go California in that matchup. Arizona and Wichita State, I'm going Arizona. Miami and Buffalo, I'm going Miami. Iowa and Temple, I am going Temple. Villanova and UNC Asheville, I'm going Villanova. So we have Kansas, Colorado, Maryland, Cal, Arizona, Miami, Temple, and Villanova advancing to the field of 32. So in the Kansas-Colorado matchup, I am going to go Kansas. Maryland and California, I'm going California in that matchup. I talked to you guys earlier about Ivan Rabb, and I talked to you guys about Jaylen Brown. And so I'm thinking California is going to make a nice run in this tournament because they have 2 potential top 10 NBA draft picks on the team. So I have a lot of faith in California. Arizona, Miami, I am going Arizona. Temple, Villanova, I am going Villanova. So now we have the Sweet 16 matchup of Kansas, California, Arizona, and Villanova. So we're going to, with Kansas and California, this is my upset right here. I'm picking California to upset Kansas and go on to the Elite 8. So that is my upset pick in this bracket so far. Arizona, Villanova, I'm going to go with Villanova to beat Arizona. So now we're going to the Elite 8, which is California and Villanova. And I am going to pick California to make the Final Four in that bracket. So that is my upset special, is California. So we're going to see if it holds up or not. We never know. So now let's go down to the Western region. The Western region, you have Oregon playing Holy Cross, 1-16. St. Joseph playing Cincinnati, 8-9. Baylor playing Yale, 5-12. Duke playing UNC Wilmington, 4-13. Texas is the number 6 seed playing number 11 Iowa. I have a lot of faith in Texas because I love their coach. Their coach is Shaka Smart. He left Virginia Commonwealth to coach the Texas Longhorns, and I have a lot of faith in Shaka Smart. I believe that he is a future NBA coaching candidate, that he can make it to the NBA level and do well, just like Brad Stevens did well. And I have a lot of faith in Shaka Smart. So I do have him. I have him making a baby run in the tournament. So back to business. Texas A&M plays Green Bay, 3-14. Oregon State plays Virginia Commonwealth, who I just mentioned, 7-10. And Oklahoma, Cal State's Bakersfield. Okay, so I have Oregon beating Holy Cross in that first matchup. I'm going with St. Joe's to beat Cincinnati, even though I am from Ohio. I was born and raised in Ohio. I have St. Joe's beating Cincinnati. I have Baylor beating Yale. I have Duke beating UNC Wilmington. I have Texas beating Northern Iowa. I have Texas A&M beating Green Bay. I have Oregon State beating Virginia Commonwealth. Now, that may be a tricky matchup right there because, like I said, I just talked about Virginia Commonwealth. They can make a mini run, so if Oregon State loses that game, I wouldn't be shocked because Virginia Commonwealth, they play the same way underneath their new coach that they played with Shaka Smart, so it's the same system in place, and so they could upset the Oregon State. I believe they're the Beavers, but Oregon State, they have the son of the Hall of Famer and world champion Gary Payton. So Gary Payton II, or Gary Payton Jr., he plays for Oregon State, and I look for them to win a game or two in this tournament. And so I'm picking Oregon State to beat Virginia Commonwealth in that matchup. And Oklahoma, I have them beating Cal State and Bakersfield. So I have a lot of faith in Oklahoma because they have the one and only Buddy Hield. I talked about him in the previous MoonKast as well. I believe he should be a top 5 NBA draft pick. So they have him. And I believe you're going to see. I have big plans for him, or them actually. I have big plans for Oklahoma. So we're moving on to the field of 32 in this bracket. Oregon is playing St. Joe's. I have Oregon winning that matchup. Baylor plays Duke. I have Duke moving on in that matchup. Texas plays Texas A&M for the battle of the big state of Texas. I have Texas beating Texas A&M. Oregon State and Oklahoma. I'm going to go with Oklahoma to beat Oregon State. So now we are into the Sweet 16. We have Oregon playing Duke. I have Oregon winning that matchup. Texas playing Oklahoma. I am going with Oklahoma to win that matchup. So now we're in the Elite Eight. Oregon will play Oklahoma. I'm going with Oklahoma to make it to the Final Four. So far I have Cal and Oklahoma going to the Final Four. Those are my 2 picks. I know it sounds crazy, but those are the 2 picks that I'm going with so far. So we just finished 2 of the brackets, so we're going to take a pause for a station identification, and I will come back and explain the last 2 parts of the bracket. So you don't want to miss out on that. I will be back with you shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, the MoonKast has been brought to you today by Moonbase Chronicles. The double LP from Griffin G. Child, release date to be announced. You are listening to Moonbase Radio, and now, back to the show. Once again, I am back in business. God is my witness. The MoonKast has been brought to you today by Moonbase Chronicles, the double LP from yours truly, Griffin G. Child. Release date is still to be announced. Now, let's get back to the NCAA tournament. We have 2 more brackets to cover. We need to cover the East region and also the Midwest region. The East region will finish up in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a great city for sports, very passionate sports fans. I had the privilege of spending 9 months working in Philadelphia before I bounced around a few times and ended up in Arizona. So I do know a little bit about Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And then we're going to talk about the Midwest region, Chicago. That's where the Midwest region will finish up. And I believe that game will probably be played in the United Center. Just a thought. So, the East region. Let's go ahead and go over all the teams in the East region. Number 1, North Carolina takes on Fairleigh Dickinson. Number 16. Number 8, USC takes on number 9, Providence. Number 5, Indiana takes on number 12, Tennessee Chattanooga. Number 4, Kentucky takes on 13, Stony Brook. Number 6, Notre Dame takes on 11, Michigan. Number 3, West Virginia takes on number 14, Stephen F. Austin. Number 7, Wisconsin takes on number 10, Pittsburgh. Number 2, Xavier takes on Weber State. So, the first matchup, North Carolina and Fairleigh Dickinson, have UNC winning that matchup. Number 8, USC taking on number 9, Providence. Providence has the player Chris Dunn, another top 5 NBA draft pick. I have Providence beating USC in that matchup. I have Indiana beating Chattanooga, Tennessee. I have Kentucky beating Stony Brook. I have Notre Dame beating Michigan. I have Western Virginia beating Stephen F. Austin. I have Pittsburgh, Pitt, beating Wisconsin. That is an upset in my opinion. And I also have Xavier beating Weber State as well. So we're going to the field of 32. We have UNC, Providence, Indiana, UK, Notre Dame, West Virginia, Pitt or Pittsburgh, and Xavier. Okay, so here we go. This is another upset for me right here. I have Providence beating UNC. I'm going with Chris Dunn to knock off UNC, knock off the North Carolina Tar Heels. So the North Carolina Tar Heels will go down in the field of 32. Providence moves on to the Sweet 16. Indiana, Kentucky. I'm going to go with Kentucky to beat Indiana and make it to the Sweet 16. Notre Dame and West Virginia. I'm going to go with Notre Dame to beat West Virginia. So that is another upset for me. In Pittsburgh and Xavier, I am going to ride the Xavier Musketeers into the Sweet 16 to beat Pittsburgh. So Sweet 16, we have Providence, Kentucky, Notre Dame, and Xavier. So I have another upset. I have Providence beating Kentucky here. Upset delight for you guys right here. I have Providence going on to the Elite Eight. Notre Dame and Xavier. I have Xavier beating Notre Dame going to the Elite Eight. So now we have Providence and Xavier in the Elite Eight. I am going to go with Xavier to beat Providence and go to the Final Four. So if you remember it from last segment, I have California, Oklahoma, and Xavier now as three of the Final Four. So now we must get the third and final team to join us here. So in the Midwest region, we have Virginia and Hampton, 1-16. We have number 8, Texas Tech. Number 8 playing number 9, Butler. We have Purdue, number 5 playing Little Rock, number 12. We have Iowa State, number 4 playing Iona, number 13. We have number 6, Seton Hall. And I've heard this Seton Hall team has some familiar. It's kind of playing like that Final Four team back in, I believe the year was 1989 when Glenn Rice beat Seton Hall. The Michigan played Seton Hall in the championship game. So I'm hearing this Seton Hall team, which was coached by PJ Carlissimo, has some resemblance of that squad. So you have Seton Hall, number 6 playing Gonzaga, number 11. We have number 3 Utah playing number 14 Fresno State. And we have the hometown that I was born and raised in, the University of Dayton, the Dayton Flyers. We have the Dayton Flyers playing against Syracuse, so that's going to be a tough first round matchup there. We also have Michigan State playing against Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee is going to have to warm up the bus. I don't think they're going to last too long. Warm up that bus for Middle Tennessee. So in the first game, I have number 1 Virginia beating Hampton. I have Butler beating Texas Tech. So basically, the Butler did it in this game, beating Texas Tech. I have Purdue beating Little Rock, so Little Rock can warm up the bus. I have Iowa State beating Iona. Iona needs to warm up the bus. I have Seton Hall beating Gonzaga. Gonzaga, let's warm up that bus. I have Utah beating Fresno State. Fresno State warm up the bus and go back to North Central Cali. And I am going to stick with my home team, the Dayton Flyers. I am sticking with them to beat Syracuse. So Syracuse, you warm up the bus and you go back to upstate New York. Now, Middle Tennessee, they're in a lot of trouble. I say warm up the bus. Michigan State moves on. Michigan State has the player that everybody's talking about as a potential Draymond Green player, or a player who might play like Draymond Green in Denzel Valentine. So Michigan State have them moving on. So now we have Virginia, Butler. We have Purdue, Iowa State. We have Seton Hall, Utah. We have Dayton and Michigan State. Upset special. Virginia, you must warm up the bus. I have Butler beating Virginia And moving on to the Sweet 16, I have Purdue beating Iowa State, going to the Sweet 16. I have Seton Hall beating Utah, going to the Sweet 16. And unfortunately, Dayton, you got to warm up the bus. You got to head back on I-75 and head back to Dayton. I have Michigan State beating Dayton. That's a tough matchup for Dayton in the second round in the field 32. So now Sweet 16, I have Butler, Purdue, Seton Hall, Michigan State. I have Purdue beating Butler and going to the Elite Eight. I have Michigan State beating Seton Hall and going to the Elite Eight. So now we have Purdue and Michigan State. I have Michigan State beating Purdue. So Purdue warm up the bus, head back to Indiana. So I have Michigan State as my fourth team in the tournament. So I have Cal, Oklahoma, Xavier, and Michigan State in my Final Four. So that is my Final Four. Now, I have Oklahoma beating Cal and playing in the championship game. So I have Oklahoma going to the big game, which will be on April 4th, Monday. I have Michigan State beating Xavier, so Xavier must warm up the bus and go back to Cincinnati. And so for the championship, I have Michigan State playing Oklahoma. I have, drum roll if there was one available, I have Oklahoma winning the championship. So in my bracket, Oklahoma wins the whole thing. So we will see if this holds out to be true once the games fire up. So like I said, I will take my bracket and I will put it up against anybody's. We will see if it holds true. And we will see how many I get right and how many I get wrong. I'll probably go on to ESPN and set up the tournament challenge just see how it looks for me. Once again, Oklahoma plays Michigan State for the title, and Oklahoma wins the whole thing. I want to thank you for listening to this MoonKast. This is the 9th episode, so we're getting ready for episode number 10. And if you have been with me since December when I first started, I want to thank you, and I hope that you will be able to continue on and continue to enjoy the MoonKast. If you are new to the MoonKast, welcome aboard. But please go back and listen to the other ones there, because you may have missed something that is very informative for you. Once again, the MoonKast has been brought to you today by Moon-Based Chronicles, the double LP for Griffin G. Child. The album is forthcoming. It will be on the way soon. I promise it. I guarantee it. And you can also hit me up on Twitter at Griffin_G-Child. So GRIFFIN_G-Child. GCHILD. Hit me up on Twitter. We were supposed to talk about a couple of NBA teams, but we're getting late in the season. I am going to hold off on talking about those teams that I told you I was talking about. I believe it was supposed to be San Antonio, Indiana, I believe Portland. We're going to hold off on those teams right now. And we're just going to talk about NBA. But we're also going to talk about the NBA standings. So we're going to talk about where the teams are and a few things that I've seen in the NBA over the past few weeks. I've seen some things I want to speak about. And you don't want to miss out on next week's show. So we're going to talk about the teams in the Sweet 16 and a little bit of NBA. And then as we get into the Final Four, we want to talk about all that good stuff. So you don't want to miss out on episodes number 10 and 11. Stay tuned for episode number 10. Let's go with probably March 22nd. So we're going to hit you with that around that time. So thank you for listening. Once again, episode number 9. Everything's feeling good. Everything's feeling fine. Everything genuine. Stay tuned for episode number 10. And I will be back with you. The MoonKast, once again, brought to you by Moon-Based Chronicles. And I am signing off. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Moon-Based Radio.